What kind of driver are you?
It depends on the day, man. It depends on the day. It depends on what kind of mood I'm in.
All right, everybody. Well, welcome back to another episode of Checkered Roots. I appreciate you joining us from wherever you may be. A couple of quick little housekeeping items. Our sale did end on blackdirtracingco.com, but fear not, we will be running more in the future. I think that it did pretty well for what it was. We are starting to look into our fall schemes, so be looking for those here in, I'd say, I don't know, another month or two probably. We're starting to get our nose to the grindstone and start getting those figured out. Hoodies, sweats, crew necks, anything you can think of. We're gonna try to get our logo on something. So, and then in other news, if you haven't seen the social media posts, I did break my wrist this past weekend for my son's birthday. You can find a full story what happened with that on the TikTok page at alex.eskridge9. That's a lot of fun. Kind of puts a damper on the progress that we were making for actual seat time this year. So, kind of is what it is there. But tonight we are interviewing a fellow Missourian, and I am super excited to get into it. Sounds like he has some good stories, some good perspectives, some good insights. So, without further ado, let's introduce him, Mr. Lucas Schieferdecker. And it is a mouthful, but I am going to do my best to get that right all night. So, Lucas, sir, how are you?
Pretty good, man. Just hanging out in the garage. How you doing?
Doing good, brother. Doing good. Yeah, we're a couple days post breaking of the wrist, so still pretty sore, but we're surviving. Like I said when we first got on here, we're making it through. Went back to work today,
Yeah,
a little sore. I'm not gonna lie to you, we're a little sore tonight. So, but I'm excited to be here
yeah,
with you, man. I'm
yeah,
excited to see where this conversation leads, dude.
yeah. Thanks for having me. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, man, absolutely. So let's start off. Tell me a little bit about you. Who is Lucas Schieferdecker? Who is? What do you do? What do you race? Where are you from? Give us the rundown on you.
Uh, Man, I actually I was born in Illinois. I was born in Quincy, Illinois. Um, I grew up over by Liberty, Illinois, in Camp Point area. Stayed there till about fifth grade, and then when parents got divorced, I ended up coming over to Missouri, actually a little town called Williamstown, Missouri, and went to school in Canton. Graduated from Canton, and I rode bulls all through high school. Even after high school, rode professionally for a little bit, and uh, something really got me the bug after I quit rodeoing to get diving into diesel trucks and horsepower and all that good stuff. And to do all that, you have to have a good job to support it, right? So I was the road construction job wasn't cutting it, and I ended up buying a semi, and it was it's not the best way to make a living, and it's you're not home very much, but it helps afford some hobbies, that's for sure.
Sure, sure. Talk to me. You're the first guy on here who's rodeoed. That was actually something funny story. My dad tells me when I was a kid. I was fearless as a kid, absolutely fearless. I'd jump my little Polaris 95 feet in the air like it was nobody's business when I was like 4 and 5 years old.
Yeah,
I did not care. He's like, man, I wish I would have got you into
yeah,
like motocross or rodeo because like you just did not know what fear was. But where I was going with that is, tell me a little bit. So you say you got bit by that bug, that adrenaline bug. What is the comparison to hauling ass into turn one versus rodeoing?
when I first started riding bulls, that was uh, everything was a blur. For the first 12, 20, 10 to 20 times you got on a bull, everything was a blur. I mean, the adrenaline was so high. I never really been into any kind of adrenaline type of situation like that before, and it was just I thought there was nothing that could compare. There's nothing that could compare ever. And then I drove my first 1,000 horsepower truck, and I was like, "Wow, this is wild." And then we went to some drag racing stuff, which was kind of boring. Really, it wasn't really boring, but it was fun. Don't get me wrong, but you don't spend much time in a car, right? So my father-in-law got me into found a dirt modified on Facebook. It used to be a Midwest mod that raced down by the Ozarks. And I got in it, and the first time I drove it, I thought, I've drove, I've drove 1,000, 1,500, close to 2,000 horsepower stuff. Like, I got this. It's no problem, right? I barreled it off into the corner, and it felt like, well, so when you drove that race car the first time, you think you're really hauling it off in there, right? Well, you still got like a whole nother 20 feet to go before you should lift. And I didn't catch on to that. And finally, the feature comes. I'm starting in the back. It's the B main. And he come up to the window and staging, and he's like, "Dude, you have nothing to lose. This car don't owe you anything. I bought it turnkey. It was $6,500. It was a 2015 Hoffman, and cheap race car. The motor ran like crap. It probably made 260 horse, right? And um, I was like, okay, well, the track was slick, and it didn't make enough horsepower to spin you out really. And I barreled it off in there, and as I knew right then when I got it right. And as soon as I got it right, it was the most fun I've ever had. And those first few seconds, it was there's no feeling like being a few inches away from another guy's door. Your right front tire being up in a guy's door, and you're just a few inches away. It feels like you could turn the wheel just a little bit and touch his door. And there was nothing. I haven't been in anything that's compared to that.
Yeah, you talk about that feeling, and I haven't ran on track with other cars yet. And if you call $6,500 the cheap race car, I found mine for $1,000. I mean, it's a roller and it needs some work, but I got it for a
Oh
thousand
wow!
thousand bucks off a marketplace. But going back to what you're
Yeah,
saying about that feeling of I'm hauling ass, and then you watch back on the video, and it's like I am so slow. Like that was terrible.
yeah, yeah.
But
Oh
the
yeah. I mean, I've done that so many times. I feel like I'm really hauling it off in there, and I'm like, oh my gosh, if I don't lift, I'm gonna fly out of this racetrack. And then I tell a lot of people, like they're just first starting, if you really just trust the race car, trust your equipment, and it'll stick. It'll stick.
For sure. Yeah, for sure. And then when I was hot lapping, so I started off really really slow. I went really slow the whole time, but I started off like really slow. And then, towards the end of it, when I was starting to get a little bit more comfortable and a little bit more comfortable, and I was starting to figure out, okay, here's how you catch the car, here's how I pitch the car, stuff like that. But I got it one time going through turns 3 and 4 to set and to hold exactly like the way you want it to. Now it was about half speed, give that to you, but like I know that feeling, that is the most fun I have ever had, and I only ran 5 laps. It was just me on the track, running 3/4 throttle the whole time. But that feeling when
Yeah.
I got it to stick and sit and glide through that corner, it is now an addiction, right? Like I am forever going to be chasing that feeling. And until I get back in a car,
Yeah.
I am not going to stop thinking about it.
Yeah, and another thing that nobody ever really talks about or prepares you for is the side force, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's like you're the car's hiked up and you're up onto the right front tire, and it feels like this thing could just flip over at any time. And you're like, I've never felt this much side grip ever in my life. I mean, I've launched cars before, and rode the bars to 300 feet, rode the wheelie bars to 300 feet, and it kind of takes that breath out of you a little bit. Well, driving a dirt car, you go into the corner, and the first time that you get it right, you're holding your breath. Sometimes I'd have to remind myself to breathe during races a lot. I even last year, we was running really good, and uh, running the top five a lot last year, and I would get up. It would be like it felt like 3 laps. It was like, okay, dude, you got to breathe. you gotta have air to keep going at some point.
Right. No, yeah, I mean, it's a feeling like no other. But that leads me into, we were talking a little bit before recording, but that leads me perfectly into this. So I heard from you that you sold all your stuff. So tell me a little bit about
Yep.
that.
Yeah, so it was kind of one of those deals. We had this. There's this house that come up for sale, and um, it was it was like, man, we could drain everything and put a down payment on this house and all that stuff, or we could sell all the racing stuff. We want to start fresh. We want to upgrade anyway. So I was like, well, we got a new baby. We just had a new baby. He's 2 months old, and it just wasn't feasible right now. Not this year. And luckily, I don't. If you can see, I've got a lot of great sponsors, and they stuck behind my decision, and they've been really good to me. So I sold everything, and we bought this place, remodeled this place, and now it didn't take me very long. I was getting the itch really bad again, and I got a hold of a buddy of mine. I'm going to run one race this year over in Quincy, and a buddy's sport mod. And this winter, I think we're going to start building a late model. Time to go late model racing.
Yeah, that's I think I think that's the. I mean, don't get me wrong. Like 410s and 360s, they look fun, but I don't know. I don't know if I want to race them. I think that I'd love to drive one someday just to say I did it right. But do late model racing and the way they sound and the way they look and just everything about late model,
Yeah,
I love late models. Like I hope to eventually end up in like a late model, way down the line,
yeah,
obviously. But I think the late models are where it's at, dude.
yeah. And the dome. I want to go to the dome so bad.
The
Oh
dome.
man, that is a dream of mine to be in the dome.
What is the dome? I've not heard of the dome.
The St. Louis dirt in December in St. Louis.
What? I'm gonna have to
Oh my
check that
gosh,
out.
man! If you, it's amazing. It is incredible. It's so the St. Louis Rams, the stadium that St. Louis Rams used to play in, they turn that into a dirt track every year in December. Yeah, it is badass, dude. It is so cool, and the track's really rough. It's got a whole bunch of character to it, and the best modified drivers and the best late model drivers in the country show up to that place, and it's a wild night of racing.
All right, I'm gonna add that to the bucket list. The dome, dirt in December in St. Louis. I'm gonna have to.
Yeah,
Mind
it's
you,
wild. That's a dream of mine.
add. You have to remember, I didn't even know what cars were what. Never had been to a dirt track before. I think it was like April 17th for the first test and tune this year was the first time I'd ever been to a dirt track. So I am a
Really?
whopping 4 months into even starting to know what dirt racing is all about. Like I had messed around a little bit
Yeah.
in iRacing, like running some one-off races in like a dirt car, like in the mini stocks or something. But yeah, first time I went to Lakeside Speedway for a test and tune one day after work because I was starting to get really big into racing and wanting to pursue racing, I guess I should say. I was starting to look into it, and I was like, I just want to go watch one day. And I think dirt racing is the only thing I'm gonna be able to do because there's really no asphalt around us. And so I went out to a test and tune one Saturday afternoon at Lakeside, and I was immediately drawn to one the late models because there was two late models that were testing, but then there was modifieds, there was B mods and E mods that were testing, and I was watching those and I was watching the stock cars. And I was like, man, dude, I'd like whatever that car is badass. So then I went and
Yeah.
I went and found it on iRacing later. And I was like, okay, so that's a modified. And I didn't know what a B mod, E mod, A mod, anything like that was at that time. But yeah, so I'm still learning like what the crown jewels are. Obviously, I know the shootout, the Chili Bowl. Now I know Dirt in December. I know the Knoxville Nationals, Boone for the USRA,
Eldora.
Eldora. Oh yeah, Eldora.
IMCA.
IMCA. USRA is at it's down by
It's a little
Springfield,
further
right?
south, right?
And I think it's by
Yeah.
Springfield. But so we're just yeah,
Yeah.
I've just barely sunk my toes into dirt, and then now I'm fully plunging myself feet first into it, and I cannot be more excited.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun, and oof, boy, it is addictive. And you can sink a lot of money really quick, a ton of money really fast. And that's another thing that nobody really ever talks about is the cost of going dirt racing for I remember when I first met my father-in-law. Him and my dad was really good friends. That's how I ended up meeting my wife, actually. And my dad introduced me to this guy. And I remember when he built a modified, it was his one and only modified. He always raced stock cars. And I remember when he was building that car, I think he had like 12 grand in that car. And it was, you know, back then it was I was just a kid. It was a state of the art deal. Like that was a fast race car. Now, see, you can sink as much as 40 grand, 50 grand in a race car and still not have some of the top of the line stuff. And of 50 grand's a lot for an everyday guy that's going to go out to his local dirt track. And, it's, and, people are working 9 to 5s and overtime and working, Friday nights and Saturday mornings to make it to their racetrack on Saturday night or Sunday night, or working weekends or Sunday night. It's a lot of work and it's a lot of money, but it seems like race car drivers, there will always be money in race cars. Race car drivers will always spend money when there's no money. Somehow, it's like a crackhead, right?
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
They always have that $20.
Yep.
So and if you don't have it, you build it, you make it. And I've been in situations where it's, we can't afford to go racing this weekend. We got to buy this part for this race car, and there's no way we can make the racetrack. And then, my father-in-law, her stepdad, I say my father-in-law, her stepdad is a really good fabricator. So is her dad. And they're like, don't worry, we can make it. We can build it. So don't worry about it. We'll make the racetrack. And it's, somehow it's worked out. But you got to have those right people.
Yeah, absolutely. That's been the biggest advantage. I mean, obviously, besides getting to talk to all you guys and getting to hear everybody's different stories and stuff like that. I know I say this quite a bit on the show here, but the circle of people that I have now been able to build for myself, and the hey, I know a guy that I now have, or like, oh, I remember hearing about this, and like, I think that there's so much to be said, and for anybody who's listening to this, there's so much to be said by just talking to somebody. Like, you can build a relationship with somebody to where when you're in a pinch, who knows, maybe in a couple of years I decide, hey, I want to go late model racing, and I'm gonna hit up Lucas and be like, hey man, what did you think of that? What did you do when you first got into it? And or if I have engine questions, I have, God, it feels like 50 people now that I can go ricochet off ideas 50 different people and get 50 different ideas, and I'll figure out which one makes sense to me. So exactly, having that guy, like you're saying, is invaluable.
Yes. The only, the one thing that I did learn, and a great friend of mine, a few great friends. I don't know if you've ever heard of Austin Becerra or Logan Cumby. Um, even my father-in-law himself, he said this. He's raced for 20 plus years. Dave Weholder, an uncle of mine, he's raced for 30 years. I mean, the bad part about having so many people is you get so many different ideas, and just because they're race fits, it's like you have to find what works for you.
Mm-hmm.
And just because it works, this setup in a late model works for Jonathan Davenport, doesn't mean that it's going to work for me. It doesn't mean that it's going to fit the way that I drive and to fit the racetracks that I'm going to. And I had to learn that the hard way. So I was bouncing a bunch of ideas off of a good friend of mine, Logan, and another good friend of mine, Tanner. And they was really dominant at our local track. And I could see them. They was always planted. They had the right front of their car planted, and it seemed like they would turn the steering wheel, and that thing would dart wherever they wanted it to. And my car, I felt like I was pushing tight all the time, and I kept on bouncing ideas off of them, and I would do what they would, hey, this helped. I raise the panhard bar. That would help you loosen up. or put some more lead in the left rear, or put some more lead in the right rear. What, either way. And I would do that, and it would like take my car complete opposite, way too loose, way too, it would be way too tight, and then I would do that, and it'd be like, oh my gosh, I'm gonna spin out. This is way too loose, and it worked for them. They was making, I think Tanner went on like 4 wins in a row that year, and it's not like they was feeding me bad information. They're good people and they're great friends of mine, but it just didn't work for my race program. It didn't work for what I had going on in my driving style.
Sure. Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, everybody drives a car a little bit different. Everybody likes to feel something a little bit different. Everybody has different, things they're looking for in their car.
Yeah, yeah, and I always did like a tighter race car. I thought the harder that I could throw it in, the faster I was going. And then Logan told me one night, he's like, "Dude, you're like you're going in way too hard." I went to in the very beginning. I went from like lifting 50 feet early to driving into the corner way too hard, and not like meaning to slide job people, right? And just accidentally just sliding straight and straight in front of people and across their nose. And so he was like, "Dude, slower is so much faster in the slick. You can dart it off in a real heavy track and keep your foot flat to the floor." And I always had so much fun doing that because you could really throw it in, pitch the car sideways, and really carry that left front up in the air and have a lot of fun with it. And then I get into the slick, and it was like I just felt like I couldn't reel things back from running in a real heavy track. And that didn't. I went a whole year like that. I didn't start figuring it out till the year after. And man, it was like 20 some races that it took me to be like, okay, the features here, it's slick, it's black. You gotta go back to where you was lifting 50 feet too early.
Right. Right. Absolutely. That's a good little segue into a question I kind of like to ask. So, what was something that helped you learn the most? Was there a specific style of racing that helped you develop most? Was there a specific thing that you just all of a sudden clicked and figured out? Like, what was kind of something that helped you grow the most in your driving?
That's a good question, man. I think the best answer I could give you was figuring out my driving style. Like figuring out what my attitude in a race car was, right? So like am I an aggressive driver? Am I the kind of guy that likes to kind of hang back and let the cautions happen and then start working my way through the field 10 laps to go? Like what kind of guy am I? And that took a while. That took a while, just kind of figuring out what kind of driver that I was. And once I figured out what kind of driver I was, that was what helped me. That's what helped me with, okay, this is how I like to race. This is how I'm going to set my car up to race like this. I felt like I made a lot bigger strides once I learned how what kind of driver I was.
What kind of driver are you?
It depends on the day, man. It depends on the day. It depends on what kind of mood I'm in. It is. It's so. I'll be. I'll be honest with you. Um, I'll show up to the racetrack and I'll be like, I'm not. I'm not really feeling. I feel like something's gonna happen. There's a lot of people here. I'm gonna kind of hang back, and then there's other days that I'm pushing the nose of my car into everybody's ass and moving out of the way every chance I get. And so I can be really, really aggressive, but I've got to be in the mood for it. So I would say that I'm more conservative than I am aggressive.
I have a feeling, just like knowing my temperament, I have a feeling that's going to be me, being a little bit more passive until it's time to go, right? You don't need to. I have
Yeah.
this saying that I always tell. So when I'm racing in my league races on iRacing, it compares nothing to real racing, obviously. But I always say something where I'm like, you can't win it in turn one, but you can sure as shit lose it. right? You don't need to go,
Yeah, you
you
can.
don't need to barrel it off there and try to gain 15 spots in turn one, but you can sure as shit wad your car up and lose 15 spots in turn one. You know what I mean?
Yes. Yeah, man. I remember one night I started first row outside, and I took off, and we went in turn one and two just fine, and I set it up on the top in turn three, and I just flat footed it, put it up against the cushion, and just let it have every bit that it would go, and I shot out in the lead, and I mean, it just the biggest slingshot I've ever seen in my life. It was crazy. I had a half a straightaway lead on everybody. Go back through turn one and two just fine. Get back over to three and four, and I loop it and spin it around. Go straight to the back.
Oh,
It was
dude.
like I had the race, and if I could just kind of sit around and hit a consistent lap time. If we didn't have any cautions, it would have been hard to catch that car that night. But you win some, you lose some, and
Right.
I'm still waiting for the win.
So to kind of piggyback off of that conversation a little bit, so what would be your best advice? And this doesn't have to be a technique or anything like that, but what would be your best piece of advice for someone like me who is just starting into the sport, is doing it on their own, um, doesn't come from a family of racing, obviously, doesn't come from a ton of money, nothing like that. What would be your best advice to someone who's just getting into this sport?
Run the most laps that you can consistently. I mean, like, yeah, you always want to try to beat your lap before, right? But if you can run, if let's say if you can run a 17, if you can run a 17 10 times in a row, you can find areas in that lap to improve on. You can, but then keep hitting those same marks every time. That's the biggest thing that I struggled with, and that's what I would say. Focus on hitting your marks every time, as consistent as you possibly can, because there's a lot of people out there that are really fast, but they make a lot of mistakes. And they've been doing it long enough they can gather it up in time, right? But if you're super consistent and you're right there every time, when they make a mistake and you don't,
You're right there.
you're there.
No, absolutely. That's a really good piece of advice. That's the first time I've heard that one. I like that a lot. I really like that. That's super solid, man. Um, Talk to me. What is what's your proudest moment in racing, or your something you hold near and dear to you? Something. There's a lot of things in this sport, and there's a lot of things that mean different things to different people in this sport. And unless you're involved in the sport, some of the stuff doesn't seem like it would mean that much to somebody. But so I always like to kind of ask people, what's something that you hold the closest to you with racing?
I would say we went to a 2-day show over in Quincy, Illinois, and it was a whole lot of fun, man. We went into the first night, and I wasn't doing very good. I I had made it to the feature, but I started pretty far back, and I think it was 3 or 4 laps in, we trashed the front of the car. Yeah, got spun out, and then here comes another car, and just right across the front of my car, just tore it up. And we still had that race that night, and my father-in-law was helping me, and I don't think my dad was in town, but my father-in-law was helping me, and the car gets towed out of there, right? We put it over there by the trailer, and we fixed that car, rebuilt the entire front end. Even ended up having to cut the stub a little bit and re-welding the stub, and built a whole new bumper. And pieced sheet metal pieces together. We rebuilt that front end that morning, and we was finishing up the camber and the toe when it was time to check in for tech inspection. And we made the race that night, and we went to the A main, and I started in the very back. I started like 18th or 19th, and ended up finishing 11th that night. That was my second race ever, and that is something that I'll always hold so close to me, just because of just because that was the moment that I met everybody. That was the day that I met everybody that is close to me now. You know, everybody pitched in with parts, helped us out, and there was there. I remember at one time there was so many hands in there. I just kind of like stood back and was like, "There's no room for me in there to work on this car." And that was we had to put a new header on it and folded the header up. It was a task getting this car together, and to go out there and run, top 13 that day was pretty special to me. That was the most fun. I think that was the most fun that I've ever had in a race car.
That's the beautiful thing about the racing community, dude, is the willingness to help out your fellow brother, your racer. You might not like each other
Yeah.
on the track, but off the track, you know that you have to have those cars out there to race against. So that's probably my
Yeah.
by far my favorite thing with racing. But no, that's awesome, man. That's a really cool story. Well, dude, that wraps up my questions. But something I like to do at the end of these is I kind of like to say the floor is yours. So this could be merchandise or sponsors or things that didn't come up naturally that you kind of want to get off your chest. This is kind of your time to. This conversation can go wherever you want it to go. So by all means, sir, the floor is yours.
Yeah, man, I do have to thank ProCare Tree Service, uh, Levi Burhager over there. Man, he's been a really good partner, um, since I started this deal, and he's never left me hanging high and dry. He's even showed up to the racetrack and helped out, and showed up to the shop and helped out, and you know, ProCare Tree Service has been really good to me. So I've got to give them a shout out. And my brother-in-law Matt Asbrid's Trucking, they've been really good to me also. And yeah, man, I I guess I guess the one thing that I will say that dirt racing is something that will make you. It's that one thing that'll make you into a better person. And what I mean by that is it'll make you so much more patient, and that carries over into your personal life, and you meet so many great people, and it's just I can't thank everybody in the dirt racing community enough for everything they've given me, my father-in-law included. um yeah, I mean, it's been a really special part of my life.
No, I love that, man. No, I love that. Where can we find you on social media? People want to tag along with you as you start building this late model, or do you have any merchandise or anything like that?
Yeah, we don't have any t-shirts yet. And we had t-shirts. We got t-shirts from last year, but we're pretty well sold out of everything. Schieferdecker Racing on Facebook. Um, you get on my TikTok. It's Lucas Schieferdecker. It's a long one. It might take you a little bit to figure out the spelling, but if you can figure out the SCHIEF part, you'll probably find me more than likely. Um, Schieferdecker Racing, that's where we post a lot of our racing updates and a lot of our building updates. And it's just me running the social media page, so I might not get to it right away, but most of the time I try to stay pretty active on there.
Oh, that's awesome, man. Well, Lucas, brother, hey, I wish you all the best with being a new parent. I can tell you, as a father of two, that is also something that will 100% make you a better person, and I think you'll enjoy just as much of
This is
that.
number 4.
Oh my goodness, you have 4 of them,
Yeah,
bro. You
yeah,
need.
this is number 4, man. Yeah, 3 boys and a girl. 3 boys and a girl. Yeah.
Well, at least there's a reason, I guess, to go for the fourth. My wife wants a third, and I tell her she needs to get her head checked. I'm good with 2. So props to you.
Do you have a girl?
Yeah, one boy, one girl.
You got a
I'm
girl?
good.
Yeah.
One boy, one girl. I'm
Oh
good.
man, you're set. Leave it
I'm
there.
good. I
Leave
don't
it.
I
Yeah.
don't need any more. I love my kids to death, but
Yeah.
no, man. No, I really, really do appreciate you coming on, kind of sharing your story, sitting down with me. I think this was a great conversation, man. I learned a lot, and hope everybody else out there did too. So, no, thank you so much.
Yeah, man. Thanks for having me, man. I love your content, and I look forward to getting on TikTok and seeing your updates with your wrist. And be careful with them ladders, hey guy.
Yeah, right. Yeah, I'm not going on any more roof missions here anytime soon. But no, brother, we'll keep in touch. I think
Yeah.
that this could be the start of a good friendship, man. So no, thank you, and have a great night.
Yep. You too, buddy.